I'm just gonna go? What? Why am I going?
Good afternoon. Is it on?
Nope. I had to push mine in. Yep, all you.
Good afternoon. We will call the meeting to order at 5 PM. Trustee Addison is currently absent, and Grace Cudler, our student representative, is also currently absent. Public comments on closed session items. At this time, any person may address the board on any closed session items or any item not listed in the agenda. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the board cannot consider issues or take action on requests during the comment period. Time is limited to 3 minutes per person per item, 20 minutes per topic. We will move into closed session at 5:01 PM.
Say each one of them.
Oh, before we move into closed session, I will read off the items. C1, public employment, employment certificated classified and management, resignation and retirement certificated classified and management. C1.2, public employee performance evaluation, superintendent. C1.3, conference with labor negotiations. I need to read the table?
No.
All right, we are moving into closed session at 5:02. at 6:16. And if we may rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I get an approval of the agenda?
I'll second.
I have a motion to approve by trustee Garrison and a second by Candelaria Orr. Preferential? All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? And no one's absent. Public comment on consent and non-agenda items. The public may address the board on any consent or non-agenda item pursuant to the Brown Act. During this period, the board cannot consider issues or take action on any item not listed on the agenda. Time is limited to 3 minutes per person per item, 20 minutes per topic.
No cards.
No cards. Closed session reportable action taken. The governing board approved the following classified staff: reading instructional assistant for 6 hours. Do I have to say their name? Thank you. The governing board approved the following classified resignations for an 4-hour instructional assistant, 3 hours a day instructional assistant, 2.5 hours of student supervision, and the governing board approves the following classified management retirement, which is our chief business official, and we would like to acknowledge your retirement and thank you so much for all of your dedication.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Consent calendar. Is there any items that anybody would like to pull?
I'd like to pull item I-15 due to conflict of interest.
I have any other items that we would like to pull?
I move to approve item I-11 through I-14 and I-16.
I'll second.
So a motion by trustee Garrison and a second by Lopez White. Preferential?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And no one is absent. All right. I-1.5, agreement for consulting services with Kelder Engineering for the Washington School Bus Turnout.
Move to approve.
I have a motion by trustee Addison,
I'll second.
second by Candelaria Orr. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And no one's absent. And our student board representative has recused herself from this item due to conflict of interest. Thank you. J, associations reports. J1, California School Employees Association of Chapter 170. Sorry, there's no report. All right, Teachers Association of Cloverdale.
Get nothing.
No report? Okay. No report. School reports, K1, Jefferson Elementary School by Michelle Holden.
Good evening. As submitted.
Thank you.
Any questions? No? All right, Washington School Principal Report. Ms. Vernon Nansen.
Hello, everybody.
You have my report, but I wanted to let you know a couple things that are not on the report. The first one is that today we did the second half of our active attacker training on campus, and we did a lot of first aid work. It was definitely a hands-on type of experience, and then we walked the campus and went into several different areas and talked about best practices in case things were happening in different sections of the campus, and I think it was well received, and I know for sure it was super informative. Also, Ms. Holden and I have met with the Cloverdale Police Department. They are starting the the Lunch with a Cop program again. And I don't remember when it was here before, but then it stopped and now it's back. And so Ms. Holden and I met with Officer Nunez and we talked about kind of how and why we would do it and what process we would follow and that sort of thing. And so that'll be starting up. I believe our first time with that will be in February, and we'll be notifying families and having opt-outs and things like that. So I just wanted you to be aware. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cloverdale High School and JEH Continuation High School, report by Principal Harper.
Good morning, or good evening, everybody. You have my report as submitted.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to just say congrats to the second JEH student who graduated. Okay, moving on to Special Education and Student Services report by Dr. LaVey. I will get it right.
No worries. You have my report as submitted. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Curriculum and Instruction and Accountability report by Dr. Odell.
Good evening. I just want to highlight one item. We have our DLAC meeting next Thursday, where we're going to be reviewing what we talked about at our DAC meeting last night where we had our first LCAP meeting. And otherwise, my report is submitted. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Maintenance, Operations, and Transportation report by Mr. Garrity. No report, or as submitted, or thumbs up?
As submitted.
Okay. All right. Student Board Representative.
I don't have much to report due to the fact that we're just getting back to stage.
Thank you. Board reports. And may we start with Trustee Garrison?
I attended yesterday the first, one of the first of the year LCAP meetings. And so we are looking at finishing up year 3 for the LCAP, but also what does our goals look like for the next 3 years out. And there was a lot of consensus amongst the group, and that is going to be brought back to the sites. I also attended the CARE Board meeting, very well organized, very efficient, and they just updated the attendees of the district in CARE's meeting from December, which was presented at last month's board meeting. And there was no boosters meeting that I know of because it fell on the holiday. So if there was, I unfortunately missed it. But I have been attending a lot of sporting events. So, and I know tonight they are hosting our first and only wrestling match at the high school.
Do you mind if I go next just to piggyback off of Jackie? Okay, so I also attended the LCAP meeting last night. Lots of really great discussion, like Trustee Garrison said. Basically, we've come to the consensus that because this 3-year plan was created during COVID, that we all feel that the goals need to be restructured and make sure that they are up to par and meet the current needs of our students and our district as a whole. So I just at least wanted to add that in there too.
Is that the end of your report?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Trustee Addison.
I also attended the CARE meeting, and they're ready to continue to support our programs here in our schools. Look forward to working with them, and we'll be getting my schedule adjusted so I can get to the Measure H meetings at the new time as well. That's it.
Trustee Lopez White.
I attended a SARB meeting. We had 2 new referrals and 2 30-day reviews. I think there was really great conversation and collaboration amongst all of us that were there. And I did not attend the Measure H meeting. I see we will have an update on that in here, though. And I'm anxiously waiting for our CTE committee to start. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Superintendent, oh no, me. I attended our DLAC meeting and we reviewed LCAP for last meeting in December, and I'm excited to go to the January one. We also, along with Superintendent Sinistrero, we attended a banquet at the North Bay Labor Council where they presented an award to Senator McGuire and also other assembly members and other community members. And I also wanted to recognize our school board members, as January is our school board member appreciation. And I wanted to just thank every single one of you for being here and serving along with me. So, thank you. Superintendent report.
Yeah, thank you. I met with the new chief of police, and he informed me that we are probably not going to get our SORO until probably December of 2024. They did get the one that we talked about last time, and she is currently in the FTO program. It's a field training officer program, but they have lost an officer as well as a chief. So they are down, they no longer have 10, they have to have 10 basically officers to be able to do that. And so they do have one more that is currently in the program, and they will be out in June. And they have somebody else, what he called in the hopper, essentially, to get. And so they should both be ready to go by December of next year, or December of this year, I'm sorry. And then you'll notice that at the last meeting we had a forensic audit on our agenda, and you guys sent me away to do some research on that as far as what our different avenues we could go on that. And I have spoken to FCMAT. They suggested that I meet with Miss Amy Carter at SCO, and I have a meeting with her on Friday. So my plan is to update you again at the next February meeting on that. And then that's why it's not on the agenda for tonight. And then that's it. So I have on my list.
Thank you. Report and discussion items, Measure H update.
I can take that one also. So we just, we had our Measure H meeting for the month, and we basically kind of went over the different projects. We're also now bringing in the bus stop project into that meeting as well, because that's kind of getting to get some traction now. And then we also met the vice president of our modular company. So he was introduced at that meeting, so.
Thank you. Moving on to our 2 early education facilities project update.
Yeah, and so I gave them at the last, I think it was the last meeting where you guys decided which configuration of the site. And so I gave that to our architects. They are currently working on that. And they will be meeting with the different, civil engineers and everything like that too, to figure out exactly what things are going to look like. We also, we're trying to get everything into DSA's hands as quickly as we possibly can, because as you know, it's kind of a fast track thing, right? And so we're trying to get all that figured out and get it into DSA's hands, and I believe we're still shooting for the March date. And so that would allow us hopefully to be able to start construction sometime in the fall. And so that would be better off. And we talked about Because basically we have two different kinds of work in there. You have the site work, and then you have, of course, the modular, which we've already dealt with. Sometimes the modular company also does that work, but we have to go out to bid for that. So it's just going to depend on how it comes in. So we talked a little bit about that with the timing. And then whether or not we need to get two DSA numbers since it's two different work and stuff. So anyway, they're trying to figure all that stuff out. So I know that's pretty exciting. That's what we talked about.
Okay.
Seems like my report's kind of extending on to some of the other issues here.
Yes. South Cloverdale property update, R3, and then R3.1 housing options.
Yeah, so and I don't know if I brought this up last time, but when we were at CSBA, Ashley and Gabby and I went to a session that talked about what school districts are doing with some of their unincorporated land or unusable sites. And there was talking about doing potentially like employee housing on that. And so I met with a company, I guess, they're not really a company that builds, but they're kind of a service consulting company. And I just was looking for just direction from the board if during our, I believe it's January 29th, we're going to talk also about our facilities master plan. And I was wondering if you guys would be interested in having these guys come and talk a little bit about the feasibility of using that south property to potentially look at employee housing or affordable housing and stuff like that too. Patty and I sat through, wasn't it Pat? Yeah, Patty and I sat through a little bit, and it's an interesting concept. And so I would recommend that we just there's only about 2 different consulting companies in California that work on this. It's a fairly new situation. And I just thought it was really interesting for that. They also, it's not as easy as, I think I told this before, it's not as easy to sell land once it's acquired by a school district. There's a lot more processes you got to follow through. And so, anyway, I just would like to get direction on whether or not you'd like to have them a part of, or at least have them come and talk to the board about the different ideas.
I would like them to. I'm interested. I'm curious to know if with this type of thing and if there's like state funding available for it. So maybe that's a question for King Consulting that would help with this project. Also. Or maybe the firm that you talked to would have that information.
Most of them, I would say that they have, the projects they've done in the past have either been, they've used bond funds naturally to do it, or they've done some other private funding to be able to do it. But that's certainly an option we could look at doing, yes.
I want to say that in that presentation at CSBA, I think there was something mentioned about sometimes like a developer will come in and develop it, and then it's like a contract between the district and them until we basically buy back what they've developed or something. I don't remember the exact logistics, but I would be interested in having them come present, and then we can ask more in-depth questions where they would be able to answer.
And in the meantime, I know that I'm going to let everybody weigh in on it, but I was just thinking, because I'm thinking of it. In the meantime, I have sent them a lot of the different DUDAC studies and what Kelder's done, just so they can get a better idea. And in talking with them, because we normally, we have our school heads on, right, when we're talking about it, but our biggest problem with the South property, let's say, with putting fields on it, right, is we would have to move those runoff things, right? Where in housing, you could actually just use that as a feature almost, right? Where you could bridge over it, you could build on certain parts and other parts and stuff too. So it's a little bit more, I would say, conducive for that sort of building rather than the other. But anyway, it's just an idea, so go ahead.
Any?
I don't think Preston is. Are you for?
I'm agnostic.
Okay, perfect.
Yes. Yeah.
When you write that down, we got one agnostic. Did you write that down?
I wrote it down.
Okay.
Okay.
A on your sheet.
So, okay,
So-
I got my direction. Yep, I'll bring them.
Perfect. So clearly, just to be able to synthesize, what I heard is simply, yes, we would all like to have a presentation from the consulting company that you have been talking about what we're doing or what could be possible at the south property. Because we do have the south property and we're looking at what would be our best possible options for the district.
Yeah, and the only thing I would say is I'll figure out what date to put it on, as far as that goes.
Okay.
I'm not sure how that's going to work, but yeah. I'm hoping that we can get it on when we talk about our facilities master plan. Thank you.
Discussion action, S1, consideration and acceptance of donations.
I'll move to approve the acceptance of donations.
I'll second.
Hi, there's a motion by trustee Lopez White and a second by trustee Garrison. Preferential?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? And no one is absent. As to consideration and possible approval of the agreement with JL Construction Incorporated for design build of the Early Education Facility Project, TK Modular Buildings.
So as I said, this is the actual, I know we went out to bid, remember, and when we guys voted on that, this is the actual contract or the agreement with the JL Construction. And just for your information, it has been vetted through legal as well. So,
Then I make a motion to approve. S2, consideration and possible approval of the agreement with JL Construction for design build of the Early Education Facility Project TKK modular buildings.
I'll second.
So I have a motion by trustee Candelaria Orr and a second by trustee Lopez White for the consideration and possible approval of the agreement with JL Construction for design building for the Early Education Facility Project TKK modular buildings. Preferential? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And no one's absent. S3, consideration and possible approval of the Cloverdale High School Agricultural Pathway Expansion Facilities Proposal and Resolution 22408.
Just at the end, can we go back and publicly acknowledge the donations, because there were some significant dollar amounts. We can do it at the end, but I just wanted to publicly acknowledge those donors.
Yes. Can we, Mr. Harper, can we do this now?
Please do it right now, because my teacher, who is coming to co-present with me, is on her way. She's coaching at the middle school, so I told her I'll talk very slowly to buy her some time.
Okay.
So it's perfect.
Perfect. Trustee Garrison, would you like to read off, and I think this is just for clarity, I read off the list? Okay.
you can, let somebody else read it.
Okay, but you're not reading it. Okay, so I will be most likely assigning people. So trustee Garrison, please help us acknowledge our donations.
Okay, so thank you to our donors for the month of January. Mountain Mike's Pizza for 20 personal pizzas to CHS teachers. Donors Choose donated a variety of books and supplies in the amount totaling $3,194 to Washington School Library. Ohio Pile Prints donated $105.31 to CHS. Parker Doan Trust donated $7,175.95 to the CHS baseball program, and Parker Doan Trust also donated $1,435.20 to the CHS cross country program. So thank you for those donations.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
I'll read the motion. A motion was made for consideration and acceptance of donations by trustee Lopez White and a second by trustee Garrison. And it was passed 5-0 with preferential being an aye. Moving on to S3, consideration and possible approval of the Cloverdale High School Agricultural Pathway Expansion Facilities Proposal and Resolution 22408 in the matter of the Department of State Architects exemption of the Cloverdale High School Garden and Livestock Facilities.
All right, good evening, everyone. Ready for some good news? All right. So, a little bit of a, I press forward, right?
When it works.
I see a little light. Sure.
Riley told us to stall for you.
I don't see it working. Right. All right. Okay. So on Tuesday, we had our new event that we hosted, which was our course buffet. Since the board approved all of our new courses last time we were here, and since we're offering a lot of new courses, we wanted to kind of highlight what are some of our new courses, what are some of our new CTE pathways. And so we had all of the freshmen, sophomores, and juniors go to the West Gym, teachers set up tables and talked about what courses we have coming up and what are our pathways. It was a really successful event. We've never done it before, so I think there was a little bit of trepidation on staff. I'm like, wait, so we're having 3/4 of the school in the gym and they're just going to talk about classes? And so I think there was some teachers who were like, we'll see how this goes. And it went really well. Walking around talking to teachers, they were like, actually, that went really well. Like, I'm surprised it went really well. And just talking to teachers, like, yeah, I was a little nervous about course times, but now I feel like we're going to be, on a much better path. And so because the board approved all those new courses, we have our course catalog. Students are signing up for courses very soon. Next week, the 8th graders are coming over, and we're going to have a parent information night, and people are picking courses, and Catherine is going to meet with students to go over all their courses. We need to have facilities that matches what we're planning on teaching for our new courses. So first, former history teacher, can I just say click? If it's not working, I'll say click. No, actually back. There we go. Okay. So, former history teacher, of course, I have to start off with a little history. So, Cloverdale used to have an FFA chapter back in 1951. That was when I think Harry Truman was president. And so it lasted for a year, and then it went under, and then we brought it back in 2020 with hiring Angelica Rigi. And it's grown every single year since we've had it. And of course, that's when COVID happened, and so that put a wrench in kind of everything. And coming back now, we've been really growing that, and of course we hired Riley Dale, who's been really instrumental with taking on a lot of stuff, and so that's been really helpful. And then this year was the first year where we had the wheel course, where most of our freshmen were taking a class to learn about CTE pathways, and it was really great because a lot of students who never picked up a saw or power tools in their life, and they made Christmas trees, and it was really great. And so we've been getting a lot of interest into our CTE classes. Click. Okay. This also correlates with our grants that we wrote last year. Principal Ronnie Doyle wrote a lot of grants. That was really great. So we had a lot of money coming in. If you read the Cloverdale Connect today, there was an article in there about all the different grants that Cloverdale High School got. And so it was a really great addition. So I check it out. The high school was mentioned numerous times, and so that's really exciting. And so we have a lot of money coming in. And so that's great because we want to spend it and make really good programs for our students. Click. Okay. So some of the money coming in, about $250,000, and then we got some other money as well, and it's really to build these pathways and to spend money on professional development so we can have high quality teaching and paying for conferences and everything we can to have really good classes and get kids prepared for college and post-high school, which we all know is really important. Like Ms. Odell was talking about yesterday, we had our first LCAP meeting, and a good amount of people in the room talked about college and career as something that is a really big focus that we're all interested in. Click. Okay. So what do we currently have? So if you go back and look out at, we have 2 greenhouses in our back area. These are what the greenhouses look like. So when you look at that, that doesn't really be like, yay, I want my kids to go here. So the doors are broken, there's panels missing, there's graffiti on the walls, ceilings, it doesn't really function super well. We have an open field, and so this is where we were going to plant some grapes, have some vineyards. Didn't really work out, and so it's just kind of an open field right now, so there's not a whole lot going on there. Hello, Ms. Dale. And then in terms of utilities, we have some water. I'm new to Cloverdale, but from what I've kind of heard about utilities is a lot of kind of what has been built in the past is like oh yeah, my uncle is an electrician. And so there's been kind of this like, oh yeah, we can do that kind of on the cheap, but then when it's like, hey, do we have any plans? Do we have any like schematics of anything? It's kind of not really there. So we have an idea of our utilities, but not completely. So what do other schools have? So I went out and visited Geyserville to see their ag programs. They just had like multiple $1 million kind of things coming in. So theirs is like really amazing. But when you look at that and compare that to this, you kind of see the difference. So Geyserville has probably the nicest program nearby. I also went to Healdsburg. Healdsburg has some pretty nice inside facilities classrooms. They're outside, not so much. You can see, that big picture in the bottom right-hand one, pretty nice Healdsburg, and then the top right, meh, not so much. I also went to Ukiah, and they gave me a tour of their ag facilities. They're kind of more middle of the road, that's what you kind of think of like a typical high school barn, like that's kind of what it looks like. But comparing to what other schools have, I think we have improvements that we can do, which is why I'm coming to the board. So if you're like, well, this is what we have, this is what we could have, what's the plan? Here's what the plan is. And so if you look at that, that is a bird's eye view of our garden area. So in the top left, there's no laser pointer, but in the top left, that's where our current greenhouse is. We're planning on demolishing our current greenhouse and putting a nice new greenhouse in that would look like this. And then next to that greenhouse, on the schematics, we're going to have, I'll get to it eventually, Kathleen, I'll tell you when to click. On the schematics, that's where it's going to be an outdoor learning area with a shaded area. And to the right of that, so that's in the top right of the schematics, is going to be a run-in shed. And so that back area, so that's along the north property of our garden, that's what we're planning on getting everything ready for this upcoming school year. And then there's some other information here. I'll go kind of slide by slide. I'll have Riley present on this part because she can explain it better than I can.
Hi, sorry I'm late. We had a volleyball game in Roner Park. We won, so that's good. So this is actually a map that was created by an engineer of what it will look like. The top corner on the right is actually row cropping, and we would keep the barn closer to the campus just for safety of the animals. You could also see that we want to expand our orchard so that we have some production going on, and then really just make it all geared toward students having experiences that support the curriculum, the classes that we added at the last board meeting, which is exciting. So there was the greenhouse that we're going to add, which is the next slide. Or do we have a clicker?
It's not really.
Okay, so this is our industry grade greenhouse. We got input from people in industry on the best facility to put in so that students are working in a space that they could potentially be working in post high school, which is great. And then the next slide. This would be that learning space adjacent to the greenhouse. So we want to make it conducive to planting seeds outside, being able to have outdoor plants, and then also having a chicken and turkey processing lab so that we could do some enterprises with live animals, but also incorporate our farm to table class to make sure that they're seeing the business side of it as well. So we want to shade that, which would take some engineering. And then next slide. This is a run-in shed. So we would essentially have 4 stalls coming out of those 2 covered spaces so that sheep and goats could have some shelter out on our school farm. We don't want to have pigs out there because they're smelly and they're loud, but sheep and goats are pretty low maintenance and would be great to also have graze in the garden. So that's how we came up with this run-in shed idea.
Click.
And then this is a floral cooler that we would add actually right outside this door in room 2. And that would, it's not a part of the garden, but it is a part of the grant initiative. We're adding a floral class next year and the whole pathway. So the floral cooler was incorporated in the grant budget request. And then again, here's just a picture of the whole map of what the garden could be. Yeah, we're really excited how all of these things come together to support our new classes, bring us up to industry standard is the goal, so that students are prepared for the workforce. And then the next slide is about our budget. So I'm not sure how in-depth Forrest was able to go on the Strong Workforce Grant, but essentially the Strong Workforce Grant was an initiative by the chancellor and the state superintendent to try and get students to have 12 early college credits by the time that they graduate high school. And so they put forth all of this money to help that come to life and to help high schools articulate classes with the junior college. So it's not just about the facilities and pictures that you've seen in this, it's working towards that goal of getting them those early college credits. So just related to facilities, these are some of the numbers that are associated with our grant, and we are happy to answer any questions that you have. Sorry if I'm out of breath, I ran over here.
I would just say, to add a little bit, you'll notice that we're asking you to approve a resolution as well. And if you read through it, there's a caveat in the DSA where if it's considered a non-school building or a farm, essentially, where the classroom isn't really, it's not their classroom, it's more of a temporary classroom, as it were, that you wouldn't need to go through DSA to get approval. However, you'd still have to do, accessibility issues and drainage issues and things like that too. But we would be able to hire an engineer to be able to do that instead of having to take our plans through DSA and such too. So all this is basically doing is deeming it that it is that type of facility.
Yeah, so all of these projects are exempt through DSA.
And mainly the reason for the, if you go back a couple to the shade structure, if you were to build, how you saw in Geyserville where they had an actual, giant pergola, that would then trigger because it's overhead stuff, right? And it's not a kit that we're buying. So we felt it was better to just do the flag, so to speak, or the shade structure as far as that.
Yeah,
goes.
and the shade structure is also great for conditioning plants. You can see in that
Right.
middle picture in the bottom.
Right.
It just helps with transitioning them out of the greenhouse and into our row crop space as well. So the shade structure is very intentional.
Right.
One of my questions is what would be the plan for either setting money aside for upkeep of the greenhouse, because that one looks very similar to the one I have at my work, and we have had to replace the plastic on it at least 3 times. We did have a warranty with them, which depending on the lifetime that they say it has, they covered part of it, but we have had to do that. So that would just be a concern with having to replace things, or say an animal kicked the side of the barn out and we had to replace it. What would be the...
So we get annual funds from the CTE incentive grant, so we would probably tap into those funds if we did need to make any fixes to those facilities, because this grant is just to kind of kickstart all of the facilities and resources. The supplies also are not mentioned in this budget, but supplies, books, all of that is going to be paid for through this grant. So if we do need any sort of upkeep throughout the years past this 3-year grant term, we would tap into CTIG or another Strong Workforce grant. Yeah.
And I'd just point out too that that oak tree is a protected oak, and we should be very careful about putting structures within the drip zone.
Okay.
So I had a couple suggestions about switching things around, and those should probably be considered for a tree like that.
Okay. We did debate putting the barn on the back of the garden where we put the row crop space. We just figured because of the oak, we didn't want to put the row crops there because of the shade that it would provide to the row crops, so we wouldn't see as much growth. There's a lot more square footage if we were to place that in the back, but I will probably reach out to you and ask you about that recommendation.
It's very exciting.
Yeah, we are.
It's
Good news.
Well then, can I make an emotion to approve? Agenda item S3, consideration and possible approval of Cloverdale High School Agricultural Pathway Expansion Facilities Proposal and Resolution.
I'll second.
I just have another, I guess, comment or question before we vote. Is there a plan to expand the garden program? I know we have a program at elementary school, and we'll be having one at the high school to expand it at Washington so that we have it consistently through all 3 sites.
Yes, as a matter of fact, that's one of CARE's big initiatives that we're working on also.
And then who would be kind of in charge of or managing that? That's a district project that they're going to?
Would be, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I've also met with Shauna to talk about the possibility of CTE classes, specifically ag, at the middle school, so we are in talks of it.
Okay.
Yes.
But the plan would be to have something like this at every site, yes. Maybe not with the barn and animals, but yes, correct.
And that's something we might need moving forward, because next year we have a lot of concentrator courses, which are your first classes in your pathway. And then 2 years from now, when those students move from concentrator to capstones, we might need a potential another couple sections for those, considering they grow. And so if we could maybe potentially hire, a possible couple sections here, a couple sections at the middle school, that might work out.
What's the expected timeline?
The grant is 3 years long.
Oh, no, what's the expected timeline if this is approved to?
We're
So we
hoping
can
to
see
get
it.
this ready by next school year. So we've already had numerous meetings with the district office, and we have a timeline of a document going before Michael started, and then we got Michael up to speed. And so I'm kind of have a schedule send email in my email ready to go once the board approves things. So we're getting going. We definitely have a plan.
And most of the work would be not our guys. It would be subbed out, essentially. Yeah.
Any other discussion or questions? All right. I have a motion by trustee Candelaria Orr, and a second by Lopez White for the consideration and possible approval of the Cloverdale High School Agricultural Pathway Expansion Facilities Proposal and Resolution 22408 in the matter of the Department of State Architect's exemption of the Cloverdale High School Garden and Livestock Facilities. Preferential? Aye. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And no one is absent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Send that email.
It's a schedule send. It'll send itself.
Okay. S4, consideration and possible approval of SARCs for Jefferson Elementary, Washington Middle, Cloverdale High School, and Johannes Nicholas Hansen High School.
So this is a yearly thing. This is the school accountability report card. A lot of this is generated straight by the state's dashboards and data. Are there any questions regarding the SARCs?
Not for me.
Oh, I guess one question for the Jefferson School, for the number of students, 22, 23. Does kindergarten, does that include TK or do they just not?
Let me see which page you're looking at.
Page 143 or 3 of 17.
146.
Or, sorry, 146.
Sorry.
Or 3 of 17.
Thank you, thank you.
That includes TK.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yes, we on average have between 80 and 100 per grade level. There's a
Yeah.
couple grade levels. For example, I believe the current 9th grade is above 100, but otherwise you usually see around 100.
We hadn't done this for a while, so, and I know we did it last year. Was it easier this year because you kind of had it already established?
What's nice about the SARC is there's only certain pieces that we're responsible for filling in. Everything else is dumped in by the state. So honestly, we just have a little blurbs and that's about it. and the textbook piece. Everything else is data straight from the state.
And we use a company called DTS that does all the forms. You go in and fill it out, and it prints that, gets the whole, yeah, so it's not. But I agree to your point, yes, it's easier once you've started it to continue it.
Thank you.
Because a lot of the physical demographics or area doesn't change that much.
Okay.
Do we have any more questions or discussion?
Move to approve S4.
I'll second.
I have a motion by trustee Garrison and a second by trustee Candelaria Orr for the consideration and possible approval of the SARCs for Jefferson, Washington, Cloverdale, and our continuation high school. Preferential? Aye. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And no one's absent. S5, consideration and possible approval of Resolution 22407, accounting for development fees for fiscal year 2022-2023, dated June 30th, 2023.
Excuse me, good evening. Before you is Resolution 224-07, and this is for the annual accounting of developer fees that the board must review every year for the year prior. On the page 223, there is Exhibit 1 and 2, which indicates our square footage that we charge based on the resolution that the board has adopted. And it also has the accounting for the fees that we've collected in the 22-23 school year. So we began the year with $545,852. We collected an additional $202,604.77. We saw interest in the amount of $9,453.77. There is now a new governmental accounting standard that is required of developer fee account, and that is an entry that is calculated through the county, and it's deemed as the fair share that this account, the fee that's imposed on this account for the fair share of all the accounting for it. So it's a brand new thing this year, and that is a deduction then to the fees of $20,327. So it made our total revenue $191,731.54. We did have some professional consulting fees. I believe that was to King Consulting in the amount of $1,433.75. So that gives us an ending fund balance that we are now beginning this school year with as a beginning fund balance in the amount of $736,149.79. These fees will be utilized at this point as part of the match portion of the Universal TK 8 classroom buildings, and will allow for some additional occurrences for that project that will be definitely popping up, but they'll be combined with the bond funds and also the Fund 35, the school facility fees that we have about 500,000 there, 535. So all of those will go into the matching portion to the state amount of money. Any questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a motion?
I'll move to approve Resolution 224-07, accounting for development fees for fiscal year 2022-23, dated June 30th, 2023.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion by trustee Lopez White and a second by Candelaria Orr for the consideration and possible approval of Resolution 22407, accounting for development fees for fiscal year 2022-2023, dated June 30th, 2023. Preferential? Aye. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And no one's absent. S6, receive public input on district's initial process for contract negotiations with the Teachers Associations of Cloverdale for the 2024-2025 and 2025-2026 school years. Any input? Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve agenda item S6.
it's
Or
just
sorry, we don't
gathering
have to.
input.
Sorry, gathering input. My bad on that one. It's been a long day.
All right, S7, thank you. Consideration and possible approval of certificated early retirement memorandum of understanding with the Teachers Association of Cloverdale.
We did not get it back from them, so we'll be moving that on. No reason, there's no action to be taken on that item.
So is it tabled then? If they get it in time for the next meeting possibly?
I think it
Yeah,
would-
hopefully, but probably
I'm
not
ju-
for
I'm
the,
just-
yeah, basically. Hoping.
Okay. Hoping, okay. S8, consideration and possible approval of the governance handbook revisions to structure and processes, handling of public comment and addressing community concerns, handling of agenda action items, and handling of agenda informational items. Okay. So, as I stated during our organizational meeting, one of the things that I would like to work on is to be able to display the process of which we do our meetings and just the structure of how we go over discussion items, approve items, also, yeah. So here, part of the things that you have, and the reason for that is because I want to make sure that as board president that I'm being clear with the expectations and making sure that anybody who walks into our boardroom understands what is being asked and how to conduct and engage with us in a productive way and meaningful way with our structure. Therefore, here we have on page 228, we have a little outline that I created or that was provided to all of you. Here for discussion items and then for action items that outlines sort of what is on our, or what is on our governance handbook. And we're looking at the sections that have been highlighted, which are on page 238 and 239.
So is this something that would be like posted?
This is, so I envision that the page 228 would be displayed on our TV so that it is accessible and it would be displayed underneath the mission statement, or maybe we can split it for the mission statement and then just meeting, guide to meetings.
I like that idea.
I would like to ask, so here on page 238, right, 238, it has here, any member of the public that wishes to address the board regarding items listed on the agenda or not must submit a public comment card prior to the start of the meeting. I would like to just get everybody's feedback about having this possible change to be at the action item, if there's an action item, to ensure that if anybody comes in late, they still have an opportunity to submit a public comment card. Because as it's stated right now, it's prior to the start of the meeting.
Can't they submit online?
They can also, so this is the other part that it states at the front of our agenda, we have it here that if you wish to address the board, you must complete a public comment card online or in person prior to the meeting. However, I haven't been able to find where it states in our governance handbook that they can do it online, and I might have not read it, or I might have read it, passed over it. So yes, according to our agenda, they can submit a public comment card online. Yeah.
Yeah, I think as long as we have the online one, it can be submitted before the meeting, even if somebody's not going to be here at the beginning of the meeting.
And I do recall legal stating that if they come in late, and it wasn't prior to the meeting, they still have the ability to submit a card. But if we've already addressed the topic, we don't go back to that topic. They missed out on it. But a card would still have to be completed for it. That was my recollection, but that was from an attorney. I don't believe that's at our attorney office anymore. So I don't know if that's a question we want to double check again. But that was my recollection on that.
And
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt. My concern is limiting, like if a student comes to speak and they're at a sporting event or something and they come and they didn't make it and they didn't know to submit online and they.
Well, let's be real, that's parents too. I mean, it's
Well,
everybody,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Making this process as easy and accessible as possible is kind of where I'm at.
What I do see though, if there's contentious topics, we'll have to be, if that is how the board wants to move forward, we would have to be conscientious, okay, you understand what word I'm trying to say, of time. So we are not going past what's also in our governance handbook of how long we spend on a topic with public comment.
Well, we do have the time limit of 20 minutes.
Right.
And 3 minutes per comment. So I think that part would cover that.
Yeah, I'm just saying if we move to allow it when it's coming instead of the comment card ahead of time, which I understand that's what you're asking to change. Is
Well,
that
and
what
maybe
you're saying?
what we do is obviously people who've already submitted before take, the beginning portion of that 20 minutes, and then depending on when people have timestamped their particular comment card, then maybe we can just kind of go down the line, and if we have time within the 20 minutes, great, and if we don't, then unfortunately, could that be something that we kind of incorporate?
We're addressing two different things. Are we addressing where the public wants to come and talk on items not on the agenda, or are we addressing where public wants to come and talk on items on the agenda? That's where I'm
Oh,
getting
I'm sorry,
confused
I
on.
was understanding that this was an agenda topic.
Me too.
Sorry.
So I would like us to be consistent and clear on whichever one we go to be addressed on both. So like, because if we have for public comment cards, or public comment on things that are not in the agenda, you have to fill out a public comment card. But on action items and discussion items, you don't have to fill out a public comment card. I think it's going to create more confusion rather than clarity. So whichever system we go with, I want us to make sure that we're just consistent in both to better be able to simply just create that consistency and clarity. So that's the reason, that's my question. Do we want to continue with public comment cards and find value? And the only request I have here is that if there's a discussion item that anyone who would like to speak and hasn't filled out a public comment card, that they can fill one out at that time and they could still have the ability to speak.
If we haven't already passed that topic?
If we haven't already passed that topic.
I'm in agreement. I like that.
Can I make a suggestion that we still encourage comment cards, like have them available to help us with organization? But then, I think this is what you're touching on, was we have them, let's say we're going through them and, we can tell right now this is going to be this is going to be at 20 minutes and that's our time. But if it's another item and only one person comes up and speaks, but then someone walks in the door and wants to speak, then they're still allowed to speak. But we're encouraging it, but still allowing.
And I find value in the public comment cards because sometimes questions are asked and we want to be able to respond, but however we can't sometimes. And according to this, we're not supposed to. And I want to be able, one of the things that I heard also is I want to be able to follow up whenever they have that. And so the public comment card, although they don't have to, people do not have to use their name or provide us any of their information. But if they would like a response and Mr. Sinister would like to respond, that's one of the benefits that I see in public comment cards. And just being able to have it so in case, oh, this item S3, for example, is coming up and people are like, oh wait, I do have something that I want to add, that they can do so at the spot and then give it to our clerk so that we can.
I agree that we should definitely have the same procedure. We should be consistent, be it closed session,
Yeah.
non-agenda items, or agenda items. But I think we should have public comment cards submitted ahead of time, either online or at the door before the meeting. To keep it organized, that's modeled after the way our County Board of Supervisors does it, to run efficient and organized meetings. And I think we should stick with that. And then as a separate topic, there is some inconsistencies, like you pointed out, between what it says on our agenda and what it says in here, but I'll address that after the comment card part.
What is everybody else thinking? Because I would also like it, so like in our last board meeting, we had 2 people come up, but they didn't fill out a public comment card. And I would want to be able to have that availability for people who are like, oh, I want to speak and I want to say something, to provide them that avenue for them to say it. Also, there's another issue of sometimes people blurt out something that they want to say in the middle of us having a discussion. And I just want to be able to just provide them, okay, hey, if you would like to say something, you will have your opportunity to say something. We need to just finish with our first part and then public comment. And if you would like to say something at that time, please go ahead and say it.
So I get the understanding of like the public comment card. It makes complete sense, efficiency, run the meeting. I get that. But there's like a censorship vibe that I get to making it just being like ahead of time, personally, in the sense of I just don't feel it's as accessible. Either that or the other side of it is making sure that we are blasting the community as much as we can with the process to make sure that we know that people have access to it. So if we're going to do it ahead of time, I want to make sure that it is very clear and easily accessible and something that's feasible for people to do. But at the same time, if we're going to allow it during the meeting, that personally would be my preference as well. But I mean, both sides, I just feel like it's just not an easy, or I don't feel like a lot of people necessarily take advantage of that process. And it's not necessarily their fault or our fault. I just don't feel like it's as accessible then as it could be. That's all.
I guess the question is, are we adding a barrier for when asking them to please submit it beforehand?
I think asking people to be prepared is not a barrier. I mean, I put in hours preparing for a meeting. All we're asking is that people say, I want to make a comment on this topic. And somebody can submit online, play their volleyball game, and run over during the comment on that item. I mean, if they're already planning on coming over from the game, they already knew before the meeting that they wanted to comment on something. I don't think asking people to put in 30 seconds before the meeting starts is making it inaccessible.
I guess I just look at the last meeting where there was a parent that attended and they didn't know how the process was ahead of time. But I again go back to, I guess I would want clarification from legal. If we do stick with how we're currently doing it, is that allowed or is that not allowed? Are we supposed to do it this other option way?
And I agree. I think we should have legal input into that too. The other thing is that there's inconsistencies between what is on our front page of our agenda and what's in here. It says on the For example, it says the public can ask questions or make comments relevant to agenda items at the time those items are under consideration. Although no action shall be taken by the board on any item not listed on the agenda, the board may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed. I responded to questions posed last time and got excoriated on camera in front of the whole community by the presiding officer. I was following that published policy on the front of our agenda. So I'm not sure what I was excoriated for. I was following the policy.
Yeah, and I could see that confusion, and I will address that, where in our governance handbook, it states here on page 238, public comment. Each person who has submitted a comment card may speak for 3 minutes. The speaker may ask questions, and if a board member is interested in having those questions addressed, the board member makes a note for later. Comments must be on topic and not personal. For discussion, board members discuss the item by asking questions or making comments. If the board member thought a public question was relevant, they can ask staff presenter the question.
And that's, I brought this up before, we keep changing what's on the front of our agenda outside of our governance workshop as a team. So it's not the team that then made this that's on here. And then when I follow it, I get reamed in public. But I'm following what we posted here for the public.
Well,
So I understand the public can't necessarily follow stuff because we've got all kinds of contradictory stuff because we keep changing things out of agendized board governance meetings and then putting them on here.
To be fair, they didn't submit a public comment card ahead of time. So that was,
Absolutely.
so, I mean, I guess to counteract that, it would be to allow them to submit a comment card up until that time. And then therefore, everything would have been followed.
Yeah, and that's why
But
that's why I'm asking and making the request of us changing, so prior to the meeting starting, like prior to the item coming up the item coming up. And I understand, and if I can address your feelings of exoneration, excoriation in that, and I'm glad that we're having this conversation and seeing what I was following and what this is following, and it creates. I also did receive some pretty harsh tones and feedback at a different time from you, and that was completely out of place and inappropriate. And we have had several conversations that have been really, really great and really, really positive, and I'm trying to understand where it's coming.
I'm trying to understand what policies we follow. So it's clear we need to spend more time on our governance handbook. Our governance handbook needs to be aligned with our board bylaws. And then the rules that we publish for the public and the board to follow here on every agenda need to follow the bylaws, which are aligned with our governance handbook, or governance handbook aligned with our bylaws.
And the next thing,
Because
yeah.
I'm following our published rules right here that goes out to the public, and it's gonna be the same with comment cards. We need a clear rule. I love this and having this published, and we should have the same thing about our commenting procedure. I think this is an awesome idea. But I think that
And we do need,
excoriating other board members on your team in public is completely out of line. Especially when I'm following what is published right here. It says, I may respond to questions posed. And it is our bylaw, 9323, says that as well. So I'm following our board bylaws.
and then we have our governance handbook that I'm following. And so I'm trying to get clarity out of being
Our bylaws are
Board-
binding.
board president. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to get clarity as to why I brought this up. so that we can have greater clarity amongst ourselves and also amongst the public, so that we know what the expectations are and that we limit the frustration and that we can definitely govern and hear each other in a very respectful way, and that we're not operating two different systems that gets us in hot water. So this is, yeah, we have a lot of work because I know our bylaws do not necessarily reflect what we have worked on as our governance handbook. And so this is something that I'm trying to get clarity, because if I'm going to place something up and those are going to be the expectations, it's not just going to be an expectation for us sitting as a board, but also for our public. So I need to make sure that whatever space I'm trying to navigate is clear amongst both, and it's being able, and it's upheld. So this is why it's here, and I'm trying to ask so that we don't have an ugly disagreement.
So is our goal tonight to hammer out this, what's specifically here?
To
get us all agree here, because I feel like one conversation wasn't done on one particular spot, and then we moved in.
Yeah.
To the other one. And I just want to reiterate that when it comes to public comment, I lean more towards letting them come speak, even if they didn't fill out a public comment card.
But having them fill out a comment card prior to speaking, even if it wasn't prior to the meeting. They would still fill out a comment card.
I mean, I would even lean towards not, because sometimes it's almost a waste of time if it's like this amount of people in the room, and if one of our spectators got up and wanted to speak, and then we're just sitting there waiting for them to fill out a public comment card. I mean, that's why I want to know if we can encourage them to still fill it out ahead of time if they feel inclined to, or have the time or are prepared, but also not limiting the public from coming up and speaking, because there's a large, I mean, I know I didn't know what to do the first time I ever came to a board meeting. I didn't know the expectations, and luckily, when it was Zoom, I never knew anything. I hopped on halfway through and felt motivated to speak, and I was accepted and able to speak. So
I feel like there's 3 different parts to this. Like, one, we sound like we all like this. This sounds fantastic.
I love that.
Okay.
Let's just agree with what we're going to put.
Exactly. Second discussion is obviously about when to allow public comment cards, because all of us sound like we want people to do them, but whether or not, what point that they actually are allowed up until the point. And then the third is we seriously have consistency issues that we need to make sure across the board so that there's no confusion. So those seem to be the 3 conversations we are having. So if we're all in agreement with this, can we move forward with this? But then with governance next month, obviously hash out the consistency issues.
Well, we need to make sure that this is aligned.
Yes.
This is aligned. So it's kind of like, okay, so, yeah, I would still want to encourage people to fill out a public comment card. I see the value in them. I would like to just simply ask them also, if they didn't know that they were going to speak during the time where the board asks for questions and then where we hear public comments, would be, if you did not previously fill out a public comment card, please fill one out, and it is now time to hear your public comments on this item or discussion.
I think that's a good idea to kind of meet the majority of expectations to still fill out a comment card.
I feel that it should be required, not maybe, because for consistency and to have expectations, they should fill it out. I hear where you're saying like it's going to take time, but also as Trustee Mendoza-Torres said, if we want to respond to them, it's a way for us to be able to know, okay, we need to respond to this person, whether they call themselves Jane Doe or Minnie Mouse or, whatever they call themselves, we have a way to respond.
And we know what agenda item that they're wanting to speak to. And then I can always be processing those, as clerk. So that can be done, you know what I mean?
And if they do want a response, you could
make sure that I get whatever
Make sure that you
information.
get whatever information to follow
Yep.
up with them.
And then
I'm
we
happy
would
to take
give
that
it
on.
to.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing from the majority of us is that in our governance handbook, any member that wishes to address the board regarding items listed on the agenda or not must submit a public comment card prior to speaking.
I would say prior to the agenda and speaking, because they wouldn't be able to, if we've already passed that, they wouldn't be able to go back to that one.
Prior to
I don't know wordsmithing, but.
public comment
On that agenda item.
on that agenda item?
May I say something for a second?
Yep.
So if, we do have some, I agree with what everything's been saying right now, but what we're running into right now, I just pulled up our board policy we've got on 9323, and it's ambiguous in itself. It's contradictory in itself. It says that members of the public who wish to address the board on the agenda or non-agenda item must complete a comment card, which must be submitted prior to the meeting. And the next one right after that says, the board shall give members of the public an opportunity to address the board on any item of interest to the public as within the subject matter or jurisdiction of the board, either before or during the board's consideration of the item. It doesn't say anything about a comment card on that part. And then it also doesn't say that you have to be done it prior to, although in one it does say that. So,
I don't think they're necessarily legally contradictory, but they're not
right.
succinct.
And I'm not,
And
I'm just
they're
saying.
not helping us.
Right, I'm just saying that I think that.
And it's already in the
What-
bylaws. So
Right, once we decide what we're doing, then we need to make sure our bylaws match what we're doing on that part.
And that would be, that's my intention with starting off with this and then bringing up into our next bylaws, or our next meeting, bringing up our bylaws so that it reflects. And I didn't want to do it all at the same time because it would, I think we would have been here already for too long if we would have all done it in the same meeting. But it is my intention to make sure that all of this aligns so that we don't have unclear expectations for one another.
I kind of want to see them side by side, board policy and the governance handbook.
If our governance handbook contradicts the bylaw trumps it.
But I feel like we accomplished this tonight.
Okay.
Baby steps.
So here, so let's just focus on this.
This is rules of order,
Mhm.
and we do not have rules of order in our bylaws, do we? So we can adopt a rule of order without contradicting our bylaws. So this can be agreed to tonight. It's not, this is a rules of order versus a bylaw public comment procedure. So we could adopt this.
Okay. So here we are.
And it is very similar to what was adopted previously.
So can I make a motion to adopt?
Can I make a suggestion before we adopt it? For number 5, Secretary, Mr. Superintendent, can we just add, so President wraps up. Can I?
I don't like the language.
Thank you, Trustee Garrison. Can I make a modification so that it states, President states the what and the why to provide direction? Or this states the what and the why? Because one of the things that I've been striving or would like to do and just make sure that we are very, very clear with the direction that we're providing Mr. Sinistraro is being able to articulate the what and the why. After some of the discussion items or some of the action items that need direction. And I'm working on that.
So in the past, and this is, I mean, a discussion item can fall under different things, but in the past, superintendent would usually be number 5. And they would say, so the direction I'm hearing is, and then it's coming from the superintendent, clearly what the superintendent is understanding.
That could also be.
But
I
those
like
are the
it.
discussion items where that might be more appropriate for the president.
We can also,
President or superintendent?
we can slash it, because I do know that I think you did that tonight, in working on just making sure that, hey, what are we hearing?
So how about president or superintendent summarizes?
Are you taking notes? Oh, I was asking,
She was looking at her second.
I was,
President
I
or
was-
superintendent summarizes discussion item?
summarizes? Do you guys like to summarize?
Summarizes input.
Summarizes direction, summarizes.
Well, it might not be
Yeah,
direction.
summarizes,
Summarizes the item.
summarizes,
Period.
period.
Sounds good.
Okay, for action,
So if I could summarize what we just did. Just kidding, go ahead.
Would you? Don't even start.
It's an action item, so you're looking at the wrong list. You're on the
Yep.
7-point list.
So we're on the second one. So, for action items. Yes. So here, staff give reports, board asks questions if any. We hear public comment if any. President calls for a discussion. Once discussion is complete, president will call for a motion. Any board member may make the motion on an item. If there is a second motion, president will call for further discussion. If there's no if there's no second or further discussion, president will ask for a vote.
Well,
If there's
hold on,
no
if there's no second, then the motion dies. So we need to,
You can ask for
Change
a
that up.
different emotion or a modified emotion.
That's why if there's a second motion, president will call for further discussion. If there is no.
So change no to second.
If there is
The
no,
first sentence is right.
if there is no second to the motion,
there is a second to the motion, president will call for further discussion. If there's no second, or after further discussion, president will ask for,
a vote.
not a vote, because you can't take a vote if there's no second.
A new
Oh,
motion.
so, would
Ask
ask
for a
then
new
for
motion.
another motion.
So if there's a second to the motion, president will call for further discussion. After further discussion, president will ask for a vote. If there is no second, then what do you do?
President can ask for a new motion.
You can ask for a new motion, an amended motion, or you can table the item.
Right, so so if it's motion and seconded, it must be voted on.
Yes.
But if there's no second, then it just, right, like I said, either they amend their motion or it just dies on them.
So what do you have written down?
Well, I don't think you should put it all in the same one. I think
It
it
would
should
be
be, if there's a
split it
second
into
to the
two.
motion, president will call for further discussion, period. I think you should
Okay.
leave 7 that way. And then I would say, after further discussion, the president will ask for a vote. And then I think you could, after that, you could say, if you wanted to, you could put down, if there's no second, blah, if you wanted to do that.
Well, I think we
do need to
should,
put that
because
Yes.
I would separate, separate, but I think
But
we
I mean, I
should
think you add the
put all
steps rather than put them all in one step.
Yes.
Yes.
So I am hearing, separating them out to add an 8th step, and then adding president will ask a vote after the second motion, or after president will call for further discussion, and then if there's no more discussion, president will ask for the vote, and then 8, if there's no second motion
To the motion.
to the
Is there a second to
motion,
the motion?
president will,
Then what do you want to put after that?
Ask
Motion
for
will
a
die
new
or?
motion, amended motion, or table the item. I got this all written down too. Yeah, I got you.
I see what you're saying. You mean, so a 7 will be, if there's a second, president will call for the discussion. After for the discussion, we'll ask for a vote.
yes.
Then 8 would be then if
The
no.
next, the other
Yes.
option.
Got it, okay. So your continuation on 7, basically.
7A is if there's a second. 7B is if there's no second.
Right.
And 7C, I'm just kidding. Let's go. Okay.
Okay, do we think we understand that?
This,
Do we need-
yes. I agree.
Do we need
We
it
can-
read, should we read it back?
No.
No.
No, I'm sure it'll come back to our governance.
There's enough direction.
Okay, there's enough direction with this. Okay,
But can I ask the one question? So I think it's important that we figure out, I know that the board bylaw says kind of, it's somewhat, to me, it's a little ambiguous. So are you doing the comment card prior, or are you allowing up to the item? What are you doing on that? Because I think that's, procedurally, we need to figure that out too.
But that's not agendas. We can't address the bylaw because bylaw's not agendas.
Right, so is the idea to do to have the kind of the way of the meeting going, and then are we, from what I'm hearing before, is to get the board governance handbook and the bylaws together to kind of make sure that they match? Is that what I'm?
Bring it
I
back
know- I know this
together.
isn't-
We need to.
I know
Bring it
this
back
isn't
together.
discussion items, and I'm wrapping it up, but I'm trying to get in my head what we're talking about.
So I would make a motion to pass these rules of order.
Rules of order.
As amended during this meeting.
Okay,
And I would request that we bring back
right, okay,
our
perfect.
bylaws and governance handbook for alignment and
Yep.
discussion.
And in the meantime, I will check with legal to see what our legal part would be, or are we thinking to have legal part of the meeting?
I think it's a quick question.
I
Okay,
think legal wrote us a thing about this, which they can probably send again.
can you
okay.
PR request? I'm sorry. Can
so,
you
yeah,
just look
okay,
through?
I
that-
think legal can just provide us.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't think we need them present. I think it's a
Okay.
simple question,
already
or
have
if they
it
can
written
look.
So I completely understand that. Good.
Okay, so am I
Okay.
able to make a motion to approve as amended the rules of order?
I would say yes, we can,
I made a motion.
he made a motion.
Then I will second.
Are
You
we
just
on
be
7A
quiet.
or B?
I think we're 7A. Okay, who first did? Trustee
Preston.
Addison.
I firsted it.
And then second was by
Me.
Jenny Candelaria, or so we are
Still the same.
looking at rules of orders and approving with the corrections that, and discussion that we all had in the direction that we provided to the superintendent.
To be posted at our meeting.
To be posted on our meetings. Trustee Addison, motion, Candelaria, or second, preferential. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And no one is absent. All right. We will bring back board policy, check in with legal and governance.
Board policy and bylaws.
Board policy and bylaws and governance handbook, and Mr. Senashura will be checking in with legal to get the wording. Future agenda items. T1, facility master planning. T2, field use agreement. Anyone have anything, future agenda items?
I actually would like to request that we have all of our sports budgets for all the individual programs brought back to us so we can reevaluate them or see where we're at with all of them and see if there needs to be adjusting. And I might need to maybe work with Superintendent Sinistero to fine tune what exactly I'm asking to make sure I'm not making more work for anybody that's necessary.
Sports budgets of program offered at COSD.
Yes.
Okay.
Please, thank you.
Coffee chat?
Yes.
Anyone?
What's that?
Is that something that needs to be agendized? Or
Is that
can-
something that needs?
What? What are you asking?
Coffee
You can
chats.
Just give direction to make that.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
Anything
Welcome to
else?
Sounds
Cloverdale.
good.
Anything else?
On the future agenda items?
Future agenda items?
Well, other than the ones that we did through S8, yes.
Okay. Future board meeting dates, tentative, January 29th, and I was requested to know if y'all can
Yeah, we need to
be in
kind of double
attendance.
check that to make sure we have enough.
I let
'cause
Kathleen know I
that-
could.
That's also going to be,
Did I say anything?
Kathleen, are we doing the expulsion hearing as well as? Okay, so we're planning on that one is to the facility master planning and potentially have that south property thing that we talked about before. So we just need to make sure we've got at least 3
And expulsion,
and an expulsion potentially, yes,
and possible expulsion.
yes. Okay, we're good, thank you.
Okay, is this, we're good
So that's no longer tentative.
with
that's-
January 29th?
Yes.
February 21st, 2024, that's a regular board meeting, and then February 28th is our special board meeting.
And that is the board meeting for our board governance workshop.
I make a
Move to
motion.
adjourn.
You beat me.
I don't know.
7:47.
Thank you. I heard
Dang you,
a...
Preston. I'll second.
Okay, to adjourn our meeting, 7:47, motion by trustee Edison, a second by Candelaria Orr, preferential. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No one's absent.